Incredible moment. Young girl saves millionaire during heart attack with one touching phrase. Lily Thompson stood at the edge of the grand ballroom, a world of polished marble and flickering chandeliers swirling around her like a foreign dance. The laughter of the wealthy mingled with the soft clinks of crystal glasses. Yet here she was, a shadow among stars, feeling the weight of her own invisibility. Her mother scrubbed the floors with an unyielding diligence, the sweat of post-death life making her shoulders slump with exhaustion. How had she ended up here, in this lush prison of riches? She listened to the conversation fluttering through the air, drifting like leaves on the wind. Stocks, summer homes, and vacations in Europe filled the spaces between polite chuckles. The chatter felt suffocating, clashing against the rhythm of her heart, which yearned for simpler things: the warmth of her grandfather's stories, the adventures they shared in their small town. Yet those tales always felt like whispers in a shouting crowd, lost and forgotten. Maybe she was meant to be invisible. The scene abruptly shifted when Mr. Harrison Reed, the town's wealthy patriarch, clambered against a table, looming pale over a buffet of canapés and unuttered expectations. The crowd fell silent in an instant, as if the air itself had been sucked out, only to be replaced with shrieks of panic. People jolted into action, scattering like leaves before a storm. But Lily remained rooted, her body buzzing with an unfamiliar urgency that drowned out her fear. "You're not alone. Keep fighting," she whispered, moving closer, unsure if the words would ever reach him. Her trembling hands grasped his, as if she could pull him back from the brink. She'd learned from her grandfather that compassion was a force stronger than chaos. She just hoped it was enough. Miraculously, for a brief moment, Mr. Reed's eyes flickered with the tiniest spark. Lily felt a surge of warmth wash over her, but it mingled with the rising tension in her chest. Would her small, earnest words carry any weight in this dizzying world of power and prestige? Would they see her as a girl or something more? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As the paramedics arrived, the magic of that moment ebbed away, slipping through her fingers. The aftermath brought whispers of awe. That little girl, mixed with the swirling resistance of class. How could her single act of bravery ripple through the pristine surface of Mr. Reed's life and her family's struggle? She found herself lost, trapped in an internal battle that stirred like a tempest. Was she really capable of crafting her worth from the ashes of silence? Curiosity glittered in the frenzied murmurs around her. Why did they care? Could kindness break the silence entrenched in their structured lives? Or was she simply a fleeting anecdote in their stories, destined to be forgotten like the echoes of her grandfather's haunting tales? Lily had saved a life, but in return, would she merely become another pawn in the game of wealth? Would the whispers ever hear her voice? Or would she always feel the weight of being underestimated, irresistibly torn between two worlds? No answers shook out yet, but the cloud of uncertainty loomed, ominous, undefined, and unyielding. The next morning, a subtle shift rippled through Lily's world. The whispers from last night followed her home like a fever dream, clinging to her consciousness. She awoke to the reality of her existence: the cramped apartment, the fading wallpaper, the images of her grandfather etched into the fabric of her mind. She had touched a life, and in return, a sliver of her own had been illuminated, but the impending weight of uncertainty suffocated it. Sitting on the edge of her bed, she wrestled with the thought: what now? Was she merely a figure of curiosity, a fleeting glimpse into a life that would never be hers? Lily longed for validation, for a moment to seize the narrative of her existence. The lavish ballroom echoed in her mind. She could still hear the clinks of fine glasses, the soft laughter that mocked her ambitions. At school, everything felt amplified. The hallway buzzed with idle chatter, kids exchanging stories of luxuries she could only dream about. She had seen the world's indifference before, but now it felt sharper, like shards of glass inscribed with judgment. "Did you see that girl last night?" one girl sneered, her voice dripping with disdain. "She thinks she's a hero because she held a millionaire's hand." Lily wished she could conjure up a retort that would expose their shallow perceptions, but instead, silence clung to her tongue. She was an outsider, and the pressure of this spotlight made her acutely aware of her position. The swirling questions clawed at her, taunting her inability to bridge the divide. After school, as she walked home, determination ignited within her. She paused in front of a community center, its facade peeling, but existing, much like her own sense of purpose. A sign hung in the window advertising a mentorship program for young leaders. It felt like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. Deep down, her heart raced with apprehension. Could she embrace the challenge? She could step forward into her own story, not just the remnants of someone else's. Could she become a voice worth hearing? That evening, she shared her idea with her mother over a simple dinner of rice and beans. A tentative hope threaded through her words as she explained how she wanted to hone her ability to communicate with others, much like she had with Mr. Reed. Her mother's weary eyes lit up for the first time in ages, acknowledging something within Lily's spirit that defied their circumstances. "Every moment we share, those connections, they redefine us, Lily. You've already saved someone," her mother said, her voice cracking with warmth. Encouragement flickered as Lily realized that perhaps she didn't have to tread the path of invisibility. She could take steps towards claiming her narrative. The next day, she applied to that mentorship program with a renewed sense of purpose. As the submission clicked into the digital ether, a weight lifted. Regardless of the outcome, she could rewrite her own destiny, break free from invisibility. Yet deep inside, a lingering fear gnawed at her, the specter of rejection. What if no one cared enough to lift her voice? What if she was in fact destined to remain a footnote in someone else's story? Her confidence hung delicately as she awaited a response. She felt the adrenaline of anticipation coursing through her veins. Would she emerge from this chapter of hesitation, or would it just shift the weight of her burdens instead? In the recesses of her mind, a single thought echoed fiercely. The time had come to face the true challenge of her heart and redefine who she could be amidst the noise surrounding her. But would she find the courage to claim her new identity, or would she, once again, retreat into the shadows? Days turned into an agonizing week, each hour stretching the anticipation taut like a bowstring, waiting to snap. Lily followed the pulse of her thoughts while navigating the routine of school, each step heavy beneath the weight of possibility. She fought the tendrils of self-doubt that curled around her heart like a suffocating vine. Each time she passed the front office, a glance at the bulletin board sent a jolt of electricity through her veins. No announcements, no news, just silence. In her English class, they discussed a novel whose characters latently sought identity and purpose against odds. The book felt intimately familiar, each sentence resonating with her hidden yearnings. As she read aloud, her voice trembled with unspoken desires. She sensed the unease of her classmates, their eyes flitting away, avoiding the vulnerability she laid bare. But beyond the anticipated discomfort, a flicker of determination ignited within her. She refused to be less than those narratives that so captivated her. After school, as she ventured home, she channeled her frustration into a plan. The mentorship program lingered in her mind, a siren call whispering of untapped potential.
At the dining table, she grabbed her laptop and began drafting potential projects she could propose if accepted. Each idea brought clarity. Each line solidified her resolve. One idea in particular struck her: creative workshops focused on building empathetic communication skills in youth. Imagine creating a space where others could find their voices.
Much like she had with Mr. Reed, she thought. But beneath the excitement lay an unsettling truth. Could she really pull this off? Could she inspire change when she herself was still trying to define her own role? A voice of skepticism echoed, warning her of the risk of overstepping her bounds, of failing in front of others. As days passed, the promise of notification grew into an almost oppressive anxiety. One afternoon, she returned from school, the sunlight slanting low, golden and serene. She felt compelled to reach for her phone, heart racing as she navigated to her email app. Fingers trembling, she hit refresh again and again until a flood of notifications finally filled the screen. One stood out: Mentorship Program, Acceptance Confirmation. Shock coursed through her body, mingling elation with a visceral fear that rooted her in place. She hesitated to open it, fearing the words inside could shatter this moment of triumph, or confirm her worth. With a determined inhalation, she tapped the message open, her heart hammering wildly. "Congratulations, Lily! We are thrilled to welcome you to the Young Leaders Mentorship Program." Her eyes darted down the screen, absorbing each phrase: the support, the expectations, the outlines of upcoming activities. A storm of emotions coursed through her, electrifying resolve followed swiftly by the chilling reality of having to step up. "Wow, you're actually doing it," she whispered to herself, a smile breaking through the haze. But the excitement quickly shifted to an intense interrogation of her capabilities. What did it mean to lead when she had yet to uncover her own voice fully? The haunting thought of vulnerability loomed large. Was she truly ready to guide others when her own path wavered? That night, as she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, doubts circled like vultures. The challenge felt enormous, almost insurmountable. Yet, as she drifted into a restless sleep, a spark of determination ignited. She would not let fear write her story. She might be frail, but in that frailty she sensed strength waiting to be harnessed. The next morning she would meet the team of mentors, where anticipation met a less familiar foe, the looming specter of imposter syndrome. The time had come to confront those inner demons and embrace the possibility of growth. Would she rise to the occasion, or would the weight of expectation crush her newfound hope? The morning sun spilled into the room, bringing with it a clarity that Lily desperately needed. She had dressed in her most professional outfit, an expression of confidence she hoped to embody, even if her heart raced beneath the careful folds of her blouse. The meeting lay before her like the first dive into deep water, a plunge into the unknown. As she entered the slightly austere meeting room filled with mentors and peers, a subtle warmth engulfed her momentarily, but anxiety quickly tightened its grip. Conversations buzzed around her, a muffled cacophony of laughter and encouragement, each voice a stark contrast to the rising tide of self-doubt within her. Lily spotted Mr. Reed among the group. His familiar smile calmed her mind slightly, grounding her thoughts. She felt the gentle nudge of potential with each reassuring glance he threw in her direction. It was a reminder that she wasn't alone in this endeavor. As the meeting commenced, introductions turned into discussions about upcoming projects. The excitement in the room rippled like a current, and Lily felt herself pulled along, unwillingly at first. When it was her turn to speak, she had planned to share her workshop project. But doubt slithered through her thoughts. What if they laugh? What if it seemed foolish? Maybe she should just blend in for now, remain a bystander, hijacked by the weight of expectation. Yet deep within, a defiance stirred. "I would like to propose a series of workshops focused on empathetic communication for youth," she said, her voice trembling slightly but steady. A hush fell over the room, and she could almost feel the weight of every gaze upon her as she continued. I believe every person has a voice that deserves to be heard, and these workshops could empower young people to connect, share, and grow. The silence felt deafening, consuming her. A bead of sweat trickled down her back as she braced for rejection. Instead, a mentor at the far end nodded encouragingly, prompting another mentor to speak up. "That's a brilliant idea, Lily. Creating spaces for open dialogue is crucial, especially now." Relief washed over her, but it merged quickly with the irony of her continued inner turmoil. Had she risked too much? Voices in the back of her mind whispered that she still hadn't grasped her own identity. As discussions progressed, she found herself drawn to the dynamics in the room, noting how others navigated ideas and feedback. They grappled openly with each other, offering constructive criticism and furthering discussions, something she had always shied away from prior. Instead of feeling out of place, she actively sought to join those exchanges, chiming in and providing her insights. Each contribution began to bring clarity and confidence over her anxiety. At the meeting's conclusion, she realized she had contributed far more than she anticipated. Her ideas weren't perfect, but they sparked engagement and enthusiasm. She had voiced a desire for connection, not only for herself but for others as well. Leaving the meeting, however, her body still hummed with adrenaline, and a new wave of vulnerability crashed over her. What now? She was still grappling with her own doubts and uncertainties, and the empathy she wished to instill in others seemed daunting. The challenge she faced was no longer merely about leading, it was about confronting her fear of inadequacy head-on. For the first time, she realized that the journey towards self-assurance wasn't linear. It was an unending cycle of humility, courage, and growth. As she made her way home, a newfound resolve simmered within her. She was ready to confront the fears that had held her back for too long and turn them into a catalyst for learning. What lessons would she unearthed along the way, and could she truly allow others to guide her on this journey? Determination set in as uncharted possibilities echoed in her mind. The real challenge loomed ahead, lurking in the shadows. Would she have the strength to face the profound revelations of her own vulnerability? The next few days felt disjointed as Lily grappled with the aftermath of the meeting. Each time she passed by her reflection, she caught a glimpse of someone unfamiliar, a woman who had dared to voice her ideas yet remained shackled by uncertainty. The contrast unsettled her. While her mind buzzed with thoughts of the workshop, her heart tangled in the fear of being exposed as a fraud. Determined to regain control, she mapped out her workshop proposal more thoroughly. Spreadsheets and colorful diagrams littered her kitchen table, testament to her new resolve. In doing this, she realized that her fear could be transformed into strategic planning. She began to draft talking points, each word meticulously chosen to evoke meaningful connections. Finally, she scheduled a one-on-one with Mr. Reed, craving his insight and experience. At the coffee shop, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the soft chatter of patrons. Sitting across from Mr. Reed, she presented her ideas in fragments, her hands trembling as she glanced between her notes and his encouraging gaze. "I think your vision is vital, Lily," he said thoughtfully, stirring his coffee. "But remember, it's not just about guiding others. It's about understanding your own voice in this process." His words lingered in the air, sending ripples through her confidence. She knew he meant well, but she found herself questioning what it fully meant to understand her own voice. "Do you ever worry about being inadequate?" she asked, her vulnerability rattling the edges of her composure. He chuckled lightly, shaking his head. "Every person with ambitions faces that fear. You must recognize it exists, but it shouldn't bind you. Use it as a compass instead. Let it guide you toward your growth." Lily took his advice to heart, interspersing her workshop planning with intentional self-reflection. She began journaling each evening, pouring out her thoughts without filtering them for perfection.
The candidness of her writing became a revelation. It transformed fear into clarity, making her confront feelings she had previously avoided. With every page, she gained insights about her experiences, unearthing forgotten inspirations fueled by past encounters and aspirations. The journal also revealed stark realities. Why had she avoided conflict and discussion before? The reasons were rooted in childhood, a fear of confrontation, and a strong desire for harmony. She recognized the irony now. To foster connection, she needed to be vulnerable herself. The thought unsettled her. Was she truly ready to embrace that? As her workshop date approached, Lily found herself oscillating between excitement and dread. Her stomach churned at the thought of standing before a group, sharing a part of herself she had long kept hidden. Each breath felt heavy, as if laden with expectation. Yet there was also a spark
of determination igniting a fiercer resolve within her, pushing her to confront the monsters lurking in her mind. She decided to do something radical, open the first session not with a scripted introduction, but with a personal story about her fears. This pivot felt risky and deeply compelling. What if sharing her struggle could ignite courage in others? Somehow, in taking that leap, she sensed a beginning of transformation, both for her and for those she aimed to reach. This leap into vulnerability would test her, and the notion excited and terrified her in equal measure. The day finally arrived, and as Lily set up the room for her workshop, she took a deep breath, her heart pounding with anticipation. The moment was at hand, her chance to cultivate a genuine connection that stretched beyond her own fears. But what if they didn't resonate? What if, after all this, she still felt unworthy? As she looked around the room, she spotted familiar faces mingling nervously. Would her story inspire them, or would their expectations drown her out? The weight of the moment pressed down, and she braced herself. The stakes had never felt higher, and the lines between self-acceptance and fear began to blur. Taking a deep breath, she approached the front, heart racing with the rush of impending vulnerability. Was this truly the moment she would either rise or fall? With no turning back, she initiated her introduction, poised on the precipice of profound revelation. Standing at the front of the room, Lily felt a swirl of emotions clawing at her insides. This wasn't just a workshop anymore. It was a moment of reckoning for her, too. Every eye in the room was a mirror reflecting her fears, aspirations, and the rawness of her truth. Would they judge her? Would they relate? The stakes were higher than she had previously imagined. "Thank you all for being here today," she began, allowing herself a moment to absorb the atmosphere. She noticed a few nods and felt a flicker of hope. The warmth in their expressions infused her with courage. Taking a deep breath, she forged ahead. "I want to start by sharing something truly personal. The truth is, I've been terrified to stand here." The confession hung thick in the air. She saw a flicker of recognition among a few faces, a shared understanding of fear. She continued, "For so long, I've held back out of fear of inadequacy, worried that my ideas wouldn't resonate, or that I'd truly be exposed as a fraud. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw someone lost, uncertain about her place in the world." The room was silent, and she felt the gravity of her words sink in. This wasn't just her story. It was a universal struggle, a bridge connecting her to those seated in front of her. Encouraged, she pressed on, revealing snippets of her journey, her failures, her insecurities, the breakthrough moment when she chose vulnerability over perfection. Each word seemed to peel away layers not only from herself, but also from her audience. As she spoke, she glanced at faces brightening in understanding, a myriad of emotions washing over the room. Questions began to materialize in her own mind. What if sharing her experience could inspire them to confront their own fears? What if her vulnerability could spark a greater sense of community among them? The tension eased, replaced by an exhilarating sense of connection. When she finished, the applause was genuine, and she felt an unfamiliar warmth spread through her chest. This was not the validation she sought.
It was something much deeper, a recognition of shared humanity. After her story, the workshop transitioned to discussions and activities, structured but open for sharing. Lily could see participants sparking conversations, revealing their own vulnerabilities, finding the courage to speak up. It was as if her act had lifted a weight from the room, initiating an exchange fueled by empathy and trust. Throughout the session, Lily led with intention, encouraging others to speak up, to own their voices. She circulated among her participants, listening to their stories, soaking in their insights, and finding that the more she engaged, the more her own fears faded into the background. A profound realization dawned on her. Facilitating this space was her calling, and in helping others, she was healing her own wounds. By the end of the workshop, it wasn't just the participants who had transformed. She felt it within herself. The story she had shared, her leap of faith into vulnerability, had ignited something within her she hardly recognized before: confidence, purpose, and a burning desire to continue this work. As they wrapped up, a young woman approached her, tears brimming in her eyes. "Thank you for sharing your story. You helped me realize I'm not alone." This moment struck Lily like lightning, reinforcing her commitment to this path. Yet, as she collected her notes and glanced at the scattered chairs, a sudden shadow crept back over her. The thrill of connection contrasted sharply with the nagging fear of returning to her old ways. Had the workshop truly changed her, or was she merely riding a temporary wave of adrenaline? What if she couldn't sustain this transformation in her day-to-day life? Determined to find the answers, she resolved that tomorrow she would meet her reflections with courage, no longer viewing them as strangers, but as allies in her journey. And thus, the next chapter of this evolving journey beckoned. What awaited her in the mundane, where potential pitfalls lurked behind every corner? Would her newfound strength withstand the test of reality? Lily awoke the next morning with a fervent resolve. The sun filtered through her curtains, illuminating her room, but the warmth of the day felt distant when weighed against the prickling doubts still lurking in her mind. She sat up, the weight of yesterday's successes pressing against her heart. Had she truly transformed, or was she merely echoing the confidence of that moment? As she moved through her morning routine, her thoughts spiraled into questions of identity. Who was she outside
Of the workshop, beyond the accolades and appreciation of others? Stripping herself of those labels felt unsettling. Yesterday had felt like a revelation, yet there was a daunting reality waiting outside: her job, her relationships, and the quiet monotony of her daily life. Lily grabbed her notebook, intending to jot down reflections, but hesitated as the blank page mocked her with its emptiness. Each line she had hoped to fill with new insights felt utterly unworthy. Impatience surged as she forced herself to write. The first sentence read, "I am more than my fears." Her hand trembled slightly at the audacity of that assertion. It felt reckless, and yet a spark ignited. Finally, she scrawled a list of things she wished to accomplish. Within it, a line caught her eye: "Communicate with authenticity at work." It was simple, yet laden with possibility. The mere thought both filled her with excitement and made her stomach knot. Her workplace atmosphere could be stifling, dominated by the safe silence of self-preservation, where the loudest voice was often the one offering conformity over creativity. Could she change that? At the office, the familiar tension enveloped her as she approached her desk. The hum of conversations melded with the sound of clicking keyboards, a backdrop of the ordinary. Standing there, she could hear the echoes of yesterday's triumph battling against a chorus of insecurities. During a team meeting, her colleagues discussed their upcoming project, a presentation that required their utmost collaboration and creativity. The discussion was mechanical, devoid of energy. "Can we explore more daring ideas?" Lily blurted out, her voice shaking but steady enough to pull the room's attention. A few heads turned, surprise bubbling through the air. I mean, what if we thought beyond our usual scope? We could engage with our audience differently. The silence pricked her confidence. She had opened a door she now feared would quickly close. The team leader, Marcus, raised an eyebrow, skepticism etched on his face. "That's ambitious, Lily," he said, frowning in contemplation. "But can we risk it?" That moment, his words, his expression, held an immense weight. Doubts rushed in uninvited. But she was already stepping further into the light of vulnerability. "Yes, we can risk it," Lily challenged herself, drawing strength from yesterday's breakthrough. "Risking can lead to growth. If we keep doing what we've done, we'll end up with the same results. I believe we owe it to ourselves to stretch our boundaries." Lily steadied herself through the murmur of uncertain agreement from her colleagues. Some exchanged glances, perhaps uncertain of her emerging voice, while others leaned in, intrigued. With every word spilling from her lips, she felt like she was shedding layers of apprehension. The conversation shifted gradually, influenced by her boldness, and colleagues began to contribute ideas. A pulse of collaboration surged, and the meeting revived into a whirlwind of creativity. As the session wrapped up, Lily's chest swelled with a newfound pride. She had pushed past the barriers of expectation
and allowed her voice to carve its space. Yet it was more than just a moment of courage. It was a commitment to consistently show up with authenticity, not just in workshops, but everywhere. But as someone thanked her for her contribution, Lily felt the faint stirrings of doubt creeping in yet again. Could she repeat this moment of clarity and bravery tomorrow? The fear that her progress might slip away gripped her as she left the office, potent and unsettling. Tomorrow awaited her with further challenges, but she resolved to meet them, ready to confront whatever doubts pushed against her self-assertion. Little did she know that a conflict would arise that would not only test her resolve, but also redefine her approach to authenticity in every facet of her life. What lay ahead would shape her understanding of resilience in ways she could hardly fathom. The next day unfolded with the tension of expectation, tangible and electric. As Lily entered the office, her heart raced, not merely from the adrenaline of what she had accomplished, but from the weight of proving it wasn't a fluke. Each step felt like a declaration, "I belong here." But belonging demanded a price. Her authenticity had fractured the silence, and she now stood vulnerable to scrutiny. The morning began with another team meeting, but this time the stakes felt higher. Marcus walked in with a crisp report of their competitor's latest presentation, a lackluster reminder that the industry was infested with complacency. With every word he spoke, Lily felt the weight of recognition settle on her shoulders. "We need to elevate our performance," he emphasized, "and I want your best ideas." Remembering her leap of faith from yesterday, Lily's pulse quickened. The familiar thread of resolve tugged at her, but this time it twisted, thrumming with anticipation and fear. What if her ideas didn't resonate? Would yesterday's boldness be a mere blip in her character arc, or a foundation for her courage? Tentatively, she raised her hand. What if we incorporated live feedback from our audience? The suggestion slipped out, but its strength startled her. Anxiety clawed at her stomach. Would this idea even be worth considering, or was it just another instance of her overstepping? The room fell quiet once again, the silence draping over her like an unwelcome shroud. Some colleagues exchanged skeptical glances. She sensed their thoughts, whispering questions about her audacity and judgment. Uncertainty mingled with her apprehension, challenging her budding confidence. "I mean," she pressed on, her voice steadying with each syllable, "if we want to differentiate ourselves, we must embrace the dynamic of interaction. It can elevate the engagement." Marcus's brows furrowed, his scrutiny unmistakable. "That's an interesting thought, but can we pull it off?" He paused, studying her face. "We don't have the luxury of failure." Those words felt like a match striking her inner turmoil, igniting a storm of counterarguments. Failure had been her greatest fear. But what if failing was intrinsic to growth? "We won't know unless we try," she insisted, every syllable a testament to her burgeoning belief in herself. The dialogue shifted, the room charged with an undercurrent of energy. Other voices began to emerge, their collected support buoyant against her initial fears. A colleague proposed a brainstorming session to flesh out her idea. Plans began to materialize, and the discussion blossomed into a dialogue filled with enthusiasm. Euphoria settled over her as she consumed the scene, a stark contrast to yesterday's mechanical hum. Their collaboration was not merely efficient, it was alive, filled with creative potential. However, the joy was undercut by a lingering specter. What if this fragile stage of courage vanished the moment she turned her back? After the meeting, just as she was about to walk away, Marcus approached her. "You've shown a new side of yourself, Lily. Just remember, taking risks involves accountability." His gaze was a mix of approval and caution, and she couldn't help but wonder if he believed in her potential more than she did. That night, as she sat on her bed, the notebook calling to her once again, the bite of uncertainty crept in. How could she maintain this momentum? She needed to cultivate her voice beyond the confines of the office. Her sense of authenticity was begging to expand. With renewed vigor, she crafted a new list, this one focused on personal connections outside her job. "Connect with authenticity everywhere," she wrote, her heart racing at the realization of what that might entail. But the thought also filled her with an intoxicating fear, facing friends, family, and even herself without the safety net of professional praise. Would they accept her as she was, or shrink back from her evolving identity? As she tucked the notebook into her bedside drawer, the weight of tomorrow loomed over her like a beacon of both challenge and possibility. She was on a precipice of transformation, and the next steps would demand bravery in unfamiliar territory. Tomorrow wouldn't simply be about proving herself at work, it was about showing up wholeheartedly wherever she may go. The moment had arrived to confront not only external expectations, but the deeper internal urgencies that had long been buried. What lay ahead would challenge the very core of her identity as she prepared to face not just exterior doubts, but her own inner criticisms, echoing shades of the past. Would she seize the ignited flame of courage, or would she retreat into the shadows she was so desperate to escape? The morning light streamed through Lily's bedroom window, a warm invitation to embrace the day ahead. She sat up, the weight of yesterday's courage still heavy on her chest, a reminder that transformation required action. Today, she resolved to engage her world with a newfound openness, a step toward authenticity that frightened her even more than the boardroom debates. Breathing deeply, she replayed her radical suggestion from the meeting. What if live feedback truly transformed their presentations? Each possibility ignited a flicker of excitement, but was eclipsed by a barrage of self-doubt. It was comforting to retreat into the shadows where her insecurities thrived unchallenged. Yet deeper within her stirred a voice, a nurturing force whispering that it was time to confront her fears. She dressed deliberately, choosing a blouse that reflected her evolving style, youthful yet professional. This small choice was a silent rebellion against her previous shackles of conformity. As she maneuvered through her morning routine, she reminded herself that every brushstroke mattered in painting her identity anew. At the office, the air buzzed with a sense of purpose. The day was dedicated to brainstorming sessions revolving around her idea. Colleagues filtered into the conference room, their faces reflective of curiosity and motivation. Yet Lily's heartbeat echoed uncertainty. Would they truly rally behind her vision, or would it crumble under the weight of collective skepticism? Marcus entered, his presence filling the space with an electric charge. He glanced around, assessing the atmosphere, then turned his gaze to Lily. "Ready to lead this meeting?" he asked, a challenge cloaked as encouragement. She could feel the intensity of his expectations pressing against her budding resolve. Flashes of the moment she had shared her idea surged in her memory, those glances of doubt, the palpable silence that had followed. But a flicker of optimism pierced through the veil of her anxiety. "I am," she replied, with surprising steadiness. As she positioned herself at the head of the table, she realized this would not just be another meeting. It was an opportunity not only to pitch her idea, but to embody her growth. She shared her thoughts on live feedback, illustrating how it could enrich the connection between them and their audience. With every word she spoke, she visualized herself as an architect of change, carving out space for creativity and expression within their work culture. Questions ramped up, skepticism mingling with intrigue as the team explored the potential pros and cons. Each inquiry struck like a brush on a canvas, tempering the palette of her idea into something richer and more textured. With every challenge posed, her voice grew stronger, infusing her suggestions with conviction. Integration techniques, formats to capture audience insights, creative ways to evaluate feedback. However, buried beneath the excitement lay an undercurrent of vulnerability. She sensed eyes on her, not just evaluating her idea, but her very essence. The truth struck hard. The risk she had taken in sharing herself was greater than any professional hurdle she faced. Though her confidence swelled, shadows of doubt crept in during the discussion. Could they pull it off? A few skeptical faces expressed worry. The familiar gnaw of fear returned, but this time, instead of retracting, she met it head-on. What if we considered letting our audience be an integral part of our presentation, she posed, not merely spectators, but active participants who shape our message in the moment? It was then that Marcus interjected. Are you willing to take charge of this? Prepare a pilot run by the end of the week? The challenge shifted the tides. A rush of emotions surged through her. Every fiber of her being screamed to retreat, yet she clung to the thrill of taking responsibility. I will, she replied, her voice edged with conviction that surprised even herself. As the meeting wrapped, an unexpected gravity settled over her. She was now not just a participant, but a leader, tasked with bringing her vision to life. The landscape had transformed, and yet Lily was acutely aware of the hybrid battlefield she would navigate both externally and inwardly. Stepping into the hallway afterward, uncertainty still loomed large, yet her chest swelled with pride. She felt the rush of a conflict that was just beginning to unfold. Living authentically meant stepping deeper into the fray, armed not just with her ideas, but also with her burgeoning belief in her capabilities. Yet, looming questions remained. How would she balance the opinions of others with her vision? And could she remain steadfast against the doubt that might grow within and around her as the deadline approached? She understood that she was merely at the precipice of this exhilarating, anxiety-ridden journey. The moment of truth was drawing near, a reckoning with her self-worth and potential. Would she innovate boldly, or would she falter when the stakes were highest? The day of the pilot run arrived, and Lily stood before her colleagues, the hum of anticipation buzzing in the air. She felt the thrum of expectations coursing through her, a potent mix of anxiety and exhilaration that sent her heart racing. As she stood at the front of the room, a kaleidoscope of emotions swirled within her. Each one reflected the growth she had undergone since the day she saved Mr. Reed's life. In the quiet moments before the presentation began, Lily centered herself. She could hear her heartbeat echo, reminding her of all the doubts she had faced and conquered. The moment was not just about showcasing her idea, it was her opportunity to cement her newfound identity as a leader, unashamedly stepping forward. She discreetly glanced at the faces around her, some curious, others skeptical. Yet she felt a deep resolve. These were her ideas, her vision, shaped by the connection she had fostered through her workshops. With a deep breath, she launched into her presentation, feeling a wave of focus wash over her. The initial jitters melded into confidence as she articulated each concept, using live feedback to create a dialogue with their audience. She watched as curiosity sparked in her colleagues' eyes, their hesitation slowly thawing. Every question that arose only fortified her conviction. She realized that vulnerability had empowered her to communicate authentically. By the end of her presentation, she had painted a vivid picture of collaboration, one that ignited a lively discussion. "Does this really engage the audience?" Marcus questioned, his brow furrowed, but the bite of skepticism hadn't returned. Instead, he seemed genuinely intrigued. "Yes," she asserted, her voice steady. "Imagine the conversations we could cultivate, fostering interaction that reflects our clients' needs, no longer simply spewing our content, but inviting them to shape it." A collective murmur of agreement rippled through the group. As they transitioned in, brainstorming how to implement her concept, she felt the contours of her professional life shifting. Each idea built upon the last, unearthing a newfound momentum in the room. Her colleagues contributed insights, laughter, and creativity, a transformation that spoke to the power of collaboration she had only begun to understand. As the meeting wrapped up, a tangible energy filled the air, and Lily could hardly believe what had happened. Her voice, once a trembling whisper, had become an instrument to foster collaboration. Each person present was engaged. Her vision had extended their collective reach. Yet, as the applause faded and the meeting adjourned, a gnawing self-doubt whispered insidiously, questioning whether she could maintain this success in her everyday interactions. But through this transformative experience, she had grasped an undeniable truth. Authenticity and vulnerability were her pathways to recognition and influence within her role. The following weeks unfolded into a series of empowering moments. Every time she walked into the office, there was less to fear and more to embrace. She began conducting short feedback sessions during her team's projects, consistently inviting her peers to share their thoughts, leveraging their collective strength. This time, she didn't shrink into invisibility when expressing her ideas. She thrust herself forward, engaging fully with others. Then came the moment that proved to be the pinnacle of her transformation. Her company was nominated for an industry award for innovative engagement strategies, the very concepts she had spearheaded. The recognition was validating yet grounding. No longer was she a mere footnote destined to blend into the background. She stood at the forefront of her narrative, claimed her space, and built her place within it. At the awards ceremony, adorned in her favorite dress, Lily felt a sense of raw confidence that surged through her. As the announcer called her team's name for the win, the warm applause enveloped her, empowering her on a depth she had never known. Standing on that stage, clutching the award, the recognition of her peers echoed the worth she had forged through her personal journey of courage. With each wave of the audience, she was not just celebrating a collective achievement, but cementing her place as an authentic leader who had bravely embraced her voice. Her journey had taken her from feeling invisible to standing proudly at the forefront. Today, she had not only conquered her fears, she had evolved into a catalyst for change, both within herself and for those around her. Each day was an ongoing exercise in affirmation, challenging her to remain true to her voice while engaging fully with her world. As she left the stage, exhilaration coursing through her, Lily knew this was just the beginning. Her commitment to authenticity would continue to inspire not just herself, but also countless others who walked a similar path, reminding them that their voices deserve to be heard. Now, more than ever, she was ready to embrace every challenge and create spaces where every individual felt valued. Thus, her final transformation wasn't merely a fulfillment of expectation. It was a celebration of unyielding potential, the realization of a vibrant, authentic life. This change was hers to sustain, and Lily was finally ready to seize it all. Now is the time. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss our next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to keep feeding the algorithm and helping us grow.
Don't forget to comment your thoughts and theories about this incredible conclusion. And share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this journey of transformation. Don't wait even one more second to support the channel and be part of these inspiring stories.